Hello and welcome to the Franz Van Cat interview. I'm Annette Young. Well, the battle for the Republican presidential nomination is increasingly looking like a two-horse race. Mitt Romney scored a sizable victory over his closest rival, Rick Santorum, in the Illinois primary, but it's maybe a little bit too soon to savour the victory because all eyes are now turning towards the Pennsylvania primary. Pennsylvania is actually not until April 24, but it's essential that Santorum, who's been representing the state for some 16 years in Washington, wins. Now, somebody here in the studio who's very close to the action is the Governor of Pennsylvania, Tom Corbett. Tom, thank you so much for being with us. I understand you're here actually in Paris at the moment to meet with French investors, but clearly our interest is talking to you about the Republican presidential race. So let me start by asking you, Romney obviously got this sweeping victory, which he was really looking for in Illinois. Right. But how much closer is he to receiving the nomination?
Well, no, thank you for having us on. And the one thing you really need to follow is the delegate count. The more delegates he has, the closer he gets to the nomination. The last time I looked at the total, he had considerably more than Senator Santorum had. Picking up a large state such as Illinois, which is about the same size as Pennsylvania when it comes to population, means that he made a tremendous jump ahead in the delegate count. There are a number of primaries yet to come between now and the November 24th primary in Pennsylvania, but for the first time in many years, Pennsylvania is going to be in the mix, I think, when it comes to the convention.
It's a critical primary, isn't it?
Well, it's critical, particularly for Senator Santorum, who represented, as you said, the Pennsylvania for 16 years, both as a congressman and then as a senator before he was defeated in 2006 by now Senator Casey.
Now, you haven't endorsed anybody so far. Why is that the case?
Well, I have decided to keep my counsel to myself for the moment, and
that's a bit of an unusual move, isn't it?
It is. Well, if you look at many of the Republican governors, until it gets close to their state, they have not made endorsements. Many of them have decided to stay on the sideline, allow the process to work. That's where I am. I know both gentlemen personally. Also know former Speaker of the House Gingrich personally, and all three have helped me campaign when I was running for governor. So I'm letting this play out a little bit longer.
So has there been anything in particular that's kept you, say, from endorsing Mitt Romney?
Well, as I said, I've known Senator Santorum before he even ran for Congress. And one of my members of my staff have gone over to his campaign staff. My media person is his media person. As I've told the media in Pennsylvania, don't read anything into that at this point in time. But because of those relationships, I'm just standing on the sidelines for a while before I announce my decision.
Now, as we were just saying, your state is critical because it was also critical in the last election. It's a big state geographically. It's also got a little of everything, you know, partly blue collar, northeast, a bit of Midwest thrown in. I mean, is Rick Santorum a tough sell for Pennsylvania's voters?
It depends upon the region that you're talking about. The more moderate section of the state is down in the southeast, where 40% of the population exists and 40% of the voters exist. He has a harder time with the moderate population than he does with the conservative population. When he gets out to Pittsburgh and up to Erie and through the Northeast, he should do, in the Republican primary, do fairly well. But he's going to have a little more difficult time in the Southeast. And the question is, for the primary purposes, how well will he do? And then, should he be the nominee, you can then ask the questions again when we get to the general election.
What's your gut feeling? Do you think he will do well?
Well, the most recent polling in Pennsylvania has him up by a considerable lead. But we have not seen any advertising on TV. We get a lot of advertising. Governor Romney has spent quite a bit in many states and gone from a deficit to winning that state. So we have to wait. We probably won't see it now for another week or two, and then I think we'll start seeing it. Watch the polls then to see if it starts narrowing.
Has America gone far enough to the right to support Rick Santorum?
Well, this election is an election based on numbers, but those numbers aren't necessarily just the vote count. It is the number of electoral college count. And it depends on which states. If he were to be the nominee, it would depend on which states he could win. And also, what you really have to look at is where the economy is. I think when we get past the primary, and right now the discussion is much more on the conservative issues, the social conservative issues, it will move into where I think the real issues are in this campaign. And that's how are we better off now than we were 4 years ago? How is the economy functioning? The price of gasoline in Pennsylvania and the price of gasoline in the nation continues to go higher, not as high as it is here in France, but that can have a tremendous impact in a race. The president has the benefit of being the incumbent. Very difficult to defeat an incumbent. It happens rarely. So he has that advantage. But if something were to happen, something happening in the Mideast that would affect our economy, something happening here in Europe, particularly in the southern portion, southern countries, it could have an impact on the economy that could impact the outcome of the race in November. There's a long time between now and November.
I know, and as they say, a week is a long time in politics.
A day is a long time.
The end of the year is an eternity.
That's right.
But I mean, coming back to the whole, Republican nomination race, it has been a bit all over the shop, hasn't it? It certainly hasn't been.
How did you describe it to me?
Beforehand, I was saying in Australia we'd call it a dog's breakfast.
I've never heard the term, but now that I can picture it, I agree. It has been all over the place. You've had a number of players. I think we started out with 9. We're down to 4, but realistically we're down to 2. So there's been a winnowing of the field. So yes, it really has been.
But there's been a lot of questions and issues raised about, their religious convictions. I mean, it seems like at some point each is trying to outdo each other in terms of, making various statements on social justice issues.
Well, that's what happens in primaries. You have to appeal to the base of the party. The Republican Party, overall is a conservative party, but has a spectrum within it, just as the Democrat tends to be a little more liberal party, but has a spectrum in it. What I have found when you're running for office and you're past the primary, on a scale of 1 to 10, the conservatives are the 7s, 8s, and 9s, the liberals are the 1s, 2s, and 3s, and you're fighting for everything in the middle. So you have to be able to come back to the middle, and you will see the candidate come back to the middle.
Now, you yourself has attracted some controversy recently with your support for a bill that would require women to have an ultrasound before an abortion. In fact, you're quoted as saying, just close your eyes when asked. Well,
that wasn't a complete quote. We've been trying to explain that to people, and the question was that can they be forced to look at it? And I believe, as I answered it, and I don't have the video here, so they can't be forced to look at it. They can close their eyes. That's how it was put.
But it gives you some idea of just the nature of the political debate now taking
place.
Well,
it is, and it's the nature of the debate that really came down from the national campaign into Pennsylvania. There's a bill in the legislature that would require an ultrasound, nothing invasive. Ultrasounds are given all the time. It would pass over the body, and the woman who is planning on having an abortion would be given the opportunity one last time before she makes a very serious decision whether to take a look at that ultrasound.
Governor Corbett, now coming back to the election, what do you think of President Obama's chances, given that the economy is now starting to turn around?
Right now, his chances, I think, are better than average, better than 50-50, I should say, because the economy is starting to turn. But as you see the price of gasoline tick up, his chances become a little more
How much
difficult.
is he directly responsible for those?
It doesn't matter. In the United States, it doesn't matter because they always will blame, the governors will be blamed, presidents will be blamed, that we're not doing enough to be able to keep the price of gasoline down. We have asked, governors have asked the president to waive some of the specialty blends on gasoline right now so that the more expensive blends that we have to use in the summertime because of emission standards would be waived and keep our prices down a little bit. And we're waiting to hear what they say from that, and that's a possibility. But if the economy improves, his chances improve. If the economy gets worse, his chances decrease.
But it's going to be a tough battle for you guys, do you think?
It will be a tough battle for both sides. I think he is going to have a more difficult election this year than he had 4 years ago.
Governor Corbett, thank you so much for being with us. And that's it for this edition of the Frans van Kat interview. Stay tuned for more news and headlines, which are coming up very shortly.